Welcome to the Daily Brew, the devotional where every day we drink a new brew, this week of tea, and we see what God is brewing for us in the Bible. Yes, it's cheesy, but it's true, and we have got one of my favorite teas today. But before we get into the brew, let's check out what scriptures we are reading in the Bible. So they're going to be in the descriptions of whatever platform you're in today, but let me just read them out. Proverbs 10 verse 1 to 10, Luke 18 verse 31 to chapter 19 verse 10, Deuteronomy chapter 29 all the way to chapter 30 verse 10. Now, I'm very excited to get into the brew today, but I realized I didn't actually let you know that I am filming from Auckland. I'm just not filming from my kitchen. I decided to change things up. When I drink a tea, I like to drink it on my couch. And so that's why we're here on the couch today. Thank you for joining me. And we are trying today a jasmine green tea. Yesterday we had a green tea, wasn't so good. And I feel like I did give the green tea a little bit of a hard time, but it's because it just tasted like grass. And this is why I love my jasmine green tea. Today we're drinking chai nui. Again, it's one of those teas that I actually just tend to leave the tea bag in for a little bit too long. Sometimes I drink this tea and I don't take the tea bag out because I really like the jasmine-y kind of flavor. It's just a preference of mine. But I do love a flowery tea, which is that jasmine kind of sweety kind of, I don't know if I can do the whole tasting notes thing like Harry does, but what I've done today is I've brewed it for the exact amount of time that it was told to be brewed for, 2 to 3 minutes. So I did it for 2.5, that perfect middle ground. And so I'm not actually sure if it's going to be strong enough for my liking. I really hope we do the green tea a little bit of justice, but here we go. Oh, it's so hot. I just took the tea bag out. Yeah, okay. Okay, cool. It's delicious as a tea, but I think keeping the tea bag in for longer would be of greater benefit for this tea. So if you do ever try a jasmine green tea, and by the way, if you're trying to kind of edge away from some of those caffeine-infused teas, jasmine green might be a good way to go because green tea, as we've established, just tastes like grass, whereas a jasmine tea tastes like flowers. But I would say chuck the tea bag in for a little bit longer, maybe even leave it in there if you really like the jasmine flavor. But enough of the brews. I know not many of you are into tea. Let's get into the Bible. The reason why we are here, as Harry says. Across the years, there have been studies done in hospitals and hospices, interviewing people at the end of their life. Questions about accomplishments, regrets, memories, essentially looking at what is valued in people's lives as they look back retrospectively. The overwhelming regrets from these people was that more time wasn't spent doing things that they valued, spending time with the people that they loved, and doing things that really mattered. No one at the end of their life says, my greatest accomplishment was that I accumulated a lot of money. Or, I'm so glad I made that business deal. What a life accomplishment. No one sits at the end of their life and says, man, I'm so glad I worried so much about having a tidy house. Retrospection. Ooh, that tidy house one was just a little bit convicting for me. Ooh, okay. Don't worry about the messy house. You can't see it, but there's a bit of mess around here. Anyway, let's ignore it. Retrospection gives us clarity of perspective. And as people of God, we understand that in light of eternity, our lives are but a breath, a vapor. But our lives, all the same, matter deeply for eternity. What are you going to be able to say as you look back on your life? A helpful exercise I've heard suggested before is the rocking chair test or the back porch test, where if you can imagine it, sitting at the end of your life in a rocking chair on the back porch, looking back over your life, what is it that you valued? What is it that you regret? The test that I like to do is when I stand before Jesus at the end of my life, am I going to be pleasing his heart with the action I'm doing right now? Am I going to be pleasing his heart with the season that I'm in? That's my test. That's kind of my version of the back porch rocking chair test. Is as I stand before Jesus, is the way I've lived my life going to bring him joy? And I love opening the book of Proverbs because it's known as one of the wisdom books of the Bible. And we open it today. It's just 10 simple verses of wisdom. Lessons that we don't have to learn the hard way because they're there in plain English for us. As we read wisdom in the Word, we can allow it to course correct our lives. I'm encouraged today as we read verses like verse 4, lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. Put your hand to doing good. Be diligent. Keep at it. It will pay off in the end. And I want to encourage every single one of you who has been so diligent with this Bible plan. You've kept your hand to the plow so far. We are just under a third of the way through. And I want to encourage you, just like the scripture encourages us, to be diligent, to keep at it. Because the wisdom that you are gaining, the intimacy with God that is growing, it's going to pay off. So keep going. As you sit in your rocking chair, you'll be glad that you persevered. Coming into contact with Jesus helped Zacchaeus recognize what was important. As we read today in Luke, encountering Jesus shifted Zacchaeus' whole perspective on what mattered in life, and it can be the exact same for us. See, Zacchaeus had spent his adult life essentially cheating his own people as he overtaxed them on behalf of their enemies, the Roman Empire. His great wealth, which in Proverbs, which we read earlier, is called ill-gotten treasure, was his total focus. The accumulation of wealth was his entire life pursuit until he met Jesus. Now, I have no idea what they talked about that day they spent together. The Bible doesn't go into it. I'll have to ask him when I get to heaven. But Zacchaeus came out of that day with a completely different perspective, a different life ethos, and the courage to totally course correct. It's powerful when we submit to God and his wisdom, when we allow it to totally transform us, when we get our priorities corrected as God encourages us. And this is what we also read in our Deuteronomy passages today. Moses gives the Israelites a little retrospective moment as they remember some of what he had done for them. They're in this moment, as you read it, at a crossroads. Moses is saying, here's the commandments God has given you. By the way, you're about to enter into a covenant with God. And I love the last verse in our passage today. Turn to the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul. And I read that and I'm so convicted. Do I live my life loving God, obeying him with all of my heart and with all of my soul? Do you live your life for God with all of your heart, all of your soul? You will never regret loving God and turning to him wholeheartedly, loving and obeying him and living for him with your heart and your soul and your mind and your strength. You will never regret doing that. And as we stand before Jesus at the end of our lives, if we've lived wholeheartedly for him, I believe he won't just say those beautiful words, well done, good and faithful servant, but he'll also say, come and share in your master's happiness. Because our God is so pleased by our obedience. Whenever I'm presented with an opportunity to obey God, and maybe it's a scary thing. Recently, Harry's probably talked to you about some of the scary moves that we have made at the time of this recording. But I know that as I stand before God at the end of my life, and look, as I stand before God now, I know that my obedience, though it may be scary, though I may have been tentative initially, my obedience brings great joy to his heart. I want to love God wholeheartedly with my entire being, which, yes, includes my obedience. Verse of the day. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 5. He who gathers crop in the summer is a prudent son, but he who sleeps during the harvest is a disgraceful son. Make the most of every opportunity. The harvest, by the way, is now. Who in your life right now is ready to hear the gospel of Jesus? Who in your workplace or in your school right now needs to hear the word? The harvest is ripe, Jesus says. Make sure that you don't miss the opportunity. And that's it today for the Daily Brew. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you're encouraged today to live wholeheartedly for Jesus, for he is so worthy of our wholehearted devotion. Remember, as you look back on your life, you will never regret living wholeheartedly for him. Maybe today there's a point of obedience that he's pressing upon your heart to step into. Maybe there's somebody that you're supposed to share the gospel with today. Whatever it is, do it wholeheartedly because God is on your side and he is so pleased with our wholeheartedness. All right, well, I'm going to enjoy my cup of tea. Make sure you share this devotional with somebody that you love. And what does Harry say? If it's the start of your day, have a wonderful day. And if it's the end of your day, good night, sleep tight. And we'll see you tomorrow back here for day 109 of the Daily Brew. Peace.